Hey everybody, welcome back to Tampa Touring. I want to talk a little bit about what it took to get this, my 2007 Street Glide that was wrecked when I bought it, to the point where it's now street legal. Let's roll the intro. So, actual mileage may vary here. This is going to be talking about what it took me to do this in the state of Florida. Your state may be a little bit different. Every state's got their own requirements on what the inspection process looks like. So one of the things that we had to do to get this thing street legal is to actually provide all of the paperwork that the state required as far as receipts on where every piece was bought from. And the hardest part, right, you buy new parts like fender, outer fairing cap, everything, new, you got receipts from that. So, the fender, whatnot, a lot of these parts came from Dennis Kirk and from J&P Cycles, most of it from Dennis Kirk. The problem was the gas tank. The gas tank was a used gas tank. And they want to know, was this aftermarket, was it new, was it used? So if you got something from a salvage yard, they want to know that. And the problem is on used parts, they want to know the VIN number that it came from. And they will look up that VIN and see if the receipt you have matches the last titled point. So if you bought it from a salvage yard or whatever would have to provide you a receipt with the VIN it came from and the company that it was titled to. So if, they bought a crashed, vehicle or a salvage vehicle or whatever, they transfer the title into their name, and the state gives them that title as a salvage title. So they wanted to see that. The problem I had was I bought the tank from Fallen Cycles. Now this is nothing against Fallen Cycles, I want to be very clear about that. Fallen Cycles was not the last titled owner of that VIN for that tank. That was Safari Auto Brokers. Now they're about 1.5 miles away from each other. I did my research, and Safari Auto Brokers and Fallen Cycles are both DBAs, so they're fictitious companies. DBAs, doing business as, of U.S. Capital Group. Problem is the receipt said Fallen Cycles. The VIN was last titled out to Safari Auto Brokers. That caused me a lot of issues with the Department of Motor Vehicles. In the state of Florida, you have to go to a regional motor vehicle department. You can't just go to your regular DMV. So you've got to go to regional office. You go through the certificate of rebuild. There's 2 pieces of paper that have to go, 2 forms that have to go with that, along with all the receipts. So that took me a couple of go-throughs and proof that, proving that the receipt's valid and the VIN is valid and all that stuff. So finally, after 3 visits to them, they accepted that paperwork and then scheduled the inspection. Now, the inspection. What did the Regional Department of Motor Vehicles for the state of Florida actually look at on this vehicle? Right? You have to drive it into the inspection area, right? Into the garage for the inspection. What they did is they went through and looked at the paperwork, they looked at the pictures, because they want pictures of the vehicle before it was repaired, and then they're going to look at it after the repair. So they didn't check any lights, they didn't check anything, right? Other than a visual inspection that says, yes, it's been repaired. Now, they screwed one thing up. I painted this, obviously, this is not black. It was originally black. So now my new title, they issued me right there on the spot. I had it inspected. I got a new title and a plate. So I got a tag for it, right? So it's perfectly legit to go on the street. Now I'll cut in a photo, or I'll move the camera over and take a look at. There's a sticker that they put on the vehicle in a conspicuous place to show that it's actually a salvaged vehicle. So the title does say salvaged. The odometer says exempt because when Coparts had it, the battery was flat and they couldn't verify what the mileage was on it, so the mileage was unknown at that point. So it took me a couple of trips, and I was kind of nervous about it. I'm like, in the inspection process, I didn't know whether they're going to check. I made sure all my lights and everything works as it should. Whether they're going to check turn signals, brake lights, all that stuff from both foot and hand control, or what it was all going to entail. I was a little nervous about it because, technically in 2007, this had a catalytic converter in the muffler, not in the head pipe yet. That didn't come until later. They were in the muffler, in the right side muffler. I think it was only one muffler. And I've got an aftermarket exhaust on it, so I didn't know whether it was going to pass or they were going to do emissions test on it. I had absolutely no clue because I've never done this before. Turns out, all they did is looked at it and go, yep, it looks like everything is there and you fixed everything. And that's it. That was it. So it was an in and out. Within 30 minutes, so you had to be there between like 8 and 10. And they said, if you're here at 10:01, they're not going to take you because they cut the line off at that point. I was there very early. I was the first one there. I was there at like 6:30 in the morning. They started at 8. I was the first one. There was another guy with another bike behind me. Rolled into the garage, and by 9 o'clock, it was probably a little less than 9 o'clock. I was probably at work by 9:30. So probably by 8:30, we were done with just about everything. I waited for about 10-15 minutes for them to get the paperwork and the plate and stuff, print a new title. I was out of there in less than an hour. From the time I pulled into the garage till the time I walked away. It was in and out. I was very surprised at what it did. So, as it turns out, for Florida, the key thing is get your shit together, get your paperwork straight before you walk in the first time. Make sure that if you've got any component that was bought as a aftermarket, now mind you, they've got pictures, so this tank was pretty bashed up. They're going to see that, right? So I was being honest, and I put down that it was a used tank, and I had the receipt with the VIN, and I had to go back and forth a couple of times to get everything I needed. So I guess the bottom line is get your paperwork straight the first time, and you're going to have an easy time. As long as if you're doing a car, so there's nothing the guy there would get failed because his airbag light was on. Now he said that, well, the airbag light's been on since I bought the car. Well, they don't care. It's got an airbag light. If there's a check engine light or airbag light, they're going to fail you. So they failed him. The other guy with the bike, was like a Honda or a Suzuki, something like that, and he had, like short shots on it. They were no baffles, no nothing. They didn't give a crap as long as it was wrote in and you had the paperwork good to go. So at the end of the day, it really didn't matter what I put on here and what I replaced, because for them, major components for a motorcycle is very, very little. He didn't even have a front fender on that bike, and it passed, right? So my tip is, if you're in the state of Florida, and check your state, do your due diligence on it. But the inspection process in Florida was very, very easy. I know other states, they're going to actually go through and they're going to put the thing on a hoist and they're going to check through things. It may be DMV, it may be state police that have to do it, it may be a registered state inspection point, that kind of thing. We don't have a safety inspection here in Florida. They did away with it. So at the end of the day, it was a fairly easy process to get this thing actually tagged. And I delayed on it, and I waited and whatnot because I was kind of apprehensive about, is it going to pass, whatnot. No, as long as your paperwork is good, you're going to pass. So my tips to you, do your paperwork, make sure the thing looks decent. Again, make sure things work, brakes, lights, stuff like that. But in the state of Florida, it's so easy to get the thing tagged once your paperwork is in order. So with that, ride fast, take chances. See ya!